we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. We're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. We're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. Somebody sound the alarm. It's time that you know. It doesn't matter if the world is gone mad, if we just hold on, if we just hold on, yeah. Sing it louder just to let the world know. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. We were born for greatness. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness.
Good evening, welcome to, well, was our summer night live, Sunday night live, I don't know why I called it that. George, that video lasted a lot longer than what I thought. I thought for some reason that I'd extended it, but that was a long video, but we had to get ourselves in the, in the spirit of it all, isn't it? The season's finished, but yeah, that looks like exciting. You'll see that we're joined by Gabriel Sutton, who is a Birmingham City fan, as I've just... he was wearing an Accrington Stanley top before, and I thought I mistakenly sided it. Obviously, I know you do some work for Accrington, don't you? But Birmingham City fan, so you were close, not close really. Lee Bowyer coming in, so you weren't really that close to joining us in League One. But yeah, so obviously football blogging and journalist and football lab. But give a bit of a background as to obviously your involvement in the football.
Sure, great to see you both. I think really my involvement is I wanted to kind of create some content that covers lower league football in a way that maybe it hasn't been in the mainstream media, and that was kind of what I did when I set up the Football Lab. More recently, it's been writing for other outlets and creating visual and video content for the EFL Fan Show, which is kind of on Periscope, so you can check that out. But yeah, basically just talking to fans and covering lower league football. What I want to do.
Brilliant. And yeah, we're definitely in the Twitter, we'll definitely give links to all that and stuff like that. Some really good stuff. I think I remember seeing, I think it might have been the Accrington game you were at QPR in the season when Accrington beat us. But we got our revenge obviously later in the season on that side of it. But George, good evening, mate.
Good evening, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Do you know what? There's so much football on, isn't there? I'm watching at the moment. Oh, I just noticed Sheffield United have taken lead against Everton. Yeah, do you know what? I can't. Do you know what? I watched the FA. Did anyone watch the FA Cup final yesterday?
I watched towards the end of it. Yeah.
To be fair, the end bit was the best bit, wasn't it? Let's be fair. Anyone who doesn't like Chelsea, that must be the most hilarious thing I've seen in my days. VAR. I don't know about you, Gabriel, but I'm thinking like, you know, in the days when you used to save a penalty. If you gave away a penalty and you saved a penalty, it was that sort of lift, wasn't it? You know, that's what VAR's like, isn't it? It's the literal downer. But what was it? A couple of centimetres, an elbow. Oh, but because it was Chelsea, it was hilarious on that side. What do you think about VAR? You a lover of it or not?
Me, I'm not in favour of VAR. I'm really pleased for the result it had for Leicester City, because I was really pleased to see them achieve what they did. Kind of, you know, they've got sort of owners with a bit of an ethical heart, so it's kind of nice to see them doing something at on the elite level. So all fair play to them for that. I think in terms of VAR, I'm not a fan of the fact that encourages people to hesitate to celebrate. I think that when a goal goes in, it has to be an instant reaction where you're so excited and you're so thrilled to score that goal. You just want to let go and go with the emotion. And I think VAR is taking that away. So, you know, I'm not going to complain about the result yesterday because I'm really glad, I'm pleased that Leicester won. But at the same time, I'm not in favour of it.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a really good point, actually, George, because obviously George and I have chatted before about VAR, and I don't like being saying that I'm right. Well, I'm not. Well, I don't know if I was right, but I did say, actually, didn't I, George, early on, that you're going to find people that are not going to celebrate goals because it's quite embarrassing. I.e. yesterday, last minute equaliser. If you're in a final, yesterday was 20,000 people at Wembley. Sounded like a lot more at Wembley. But you can't blame the Chelsea players for getting caught up in the moment, on that sort of side of it, George. And I agree. I think players will stop celebrating. And if you take that away, there's nothing. Like, I don't know about you, George, but if you have to wait a minute for a decision and then you celebrate, it feels like a bit of an anticlimax, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think VAR is something that does need to happen. I think you look at where we were a few years ago with the refereeing errors, and I mean, if there was no VAR yesterday, Leicester don't win an FA Cup for the first time in their history. And I think, it's hilarious what happened to Chelsea, and it's made even funnier today by the fact their top four chance has been dented by a 95th minute winner by a goalkeeper. And I just think you got the VAR yesterday. I think it's so important to keep the game evolving. VAR does need fine-tuning because there are bits it can improve. I do think decisions
fine-tuning is a word, George.
Yeah, I think decisions do need to be made quicker, but I would also like to see like a Lino's call sort of a margin of error like we have in cricket for it, just to make it a bit, those couple of centimetre decisions to reduce those. But overall, I think VAR is a good thing for football.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too much on VAR. I know I discussed it, but I think the problem with VAR sometimes is, it just. Do you know what I found? And I know there's some funny videos with Chelsea fans celebrating, and then a minute later, literally near enough in tears. And I know it's funny, but I don't know about you, Gabriel. But have you been at a ground that VAR has been used? Because I haven't. But it doesn't feel to me like it feels that if you're at home, you have more idea what's going on at home than you do in the stadium. Replay's done straight away, isn't it, and stuff like that. Have you been to a live game yet with VAR?
I've been to one game where there's VAR, but I'm quite bad covering the EFL that it's not something that's involved there. And I think because of the cost of the technology with VAR, it's unlikely to ever come into the lower league. So that's one of the good things about following in the EFL side.
Yeah, I can't. Well, Birmingham probably will do it. Do you know what? I think we could probably have it, but it does cost a little bit, doesn't it, on that side? Cool. Okay. So loads of football playoffs coming up this week, which should be great. Fans in for that. So in terms of, please keep your questions coming in. We have changed it. We've gone on to a different format. So the great news is we can have these questions come up. So Jamie Scorer, good evening, one and all. Hope all is well. Hope we can keep Pigs and the South Signs a new deal. Also hoping to keep hold of Matty Cox as well. So Jamie, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We will come on to that, to be fair. We're going to do a quick review of the retain list. Lots of information coming out here and there. As we go through there, please put your vote. If there's any players that you were surprised we kept, any ones you were surprised we let go on contract, feel free to join in. We will go through. We've got some slides with some. So what I've basically put together is how many minutes players have played, goals, appearances, stuff like that. So just to get a bit of an idea. As George knows, I love a bit of stats. And actually, when you look back through them, some players played more than what I thought on that side of it. So obviously, Gabriel's watched lots of EFL football, so he's going to join in with that as well. So first one, goalkeepers. So probably not a surprise really. Zanev, John, got 15. I was really surprised by it. And this is just league, by the way, this is just league actions. It doesn't include the cup because I couldn't find a place that does minutes for the whole lot of it. But when you look at Zanev, George, 15 appearances, 8 clean sheets.
Yeah,
I didn't realise that was as many as that.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to look at our form overall as a side since Tattens came in and started playing every week after Sam Walker got injured and was returned to Reading. And we were keeping clean sheets. And like we said on the show the other week, it's become the norm for us to keep a clean sheet now or keep it down to 1 goal conceded. And that was something that we haven't had ever since we got promoted back into the league, if we're honest. Even in our promotion year, we were still conceding goals. So the fact that we were able to keep it at the back, and I think Tans deserves a huge amount of credit for keeping us up because he did turn things around. And you can see the defenders had a lot of confidence once he returned to the side.
Have you seen much of him at all yet?
Well, I was just going to say he kept that made that crucial penalty save, I think, against Northampton.
Yeah.
And given how the season has gone for both teams since that moment, that looks like a really pivotal point in AFC Wimbledon season, and possibly, Mark Robinson's reign here. So that was a massive moment, I think, and it seems like he's gone from strength to strength after that.
Yeah, you're right actually, and it's interesting because I know a Sutton United fan who Zanev was on loan there last season, and they said they absolutely loved him, Would love to have kept him. I think he's a goalkeeper that once he plays a few games, he gets like anything with goalkeepers, isn't it? You need to know that your manager is going to give you a bit of a run, because it's sometimes difficult with goalkeepers. You all know if they make a mistake, they're the last line of defence, so it's going to normally end up in a goal, isn't it? Of course, we had Connell Trueman before that, obviously Birmingham City.
Yeah.
I noticed he played the last game of the season in the 5-2. Bless him, brought him back in for that. So we've gone through quite a lot of goalkeepers. But yeah, George, I agree. Obviously, Matthew Cox. Oh, is that my end? Yeah, Matt Cox, nothing yet in terms of the league stuff, but obviously he played a lot in the youth side of the London Senior Cup. I'm not too sure if that interference is my end or not. I'll have a quick look. But yeah, we've got a goalkeeper on our hands. Obviously, a lot of looks like a few clubs are interested on Matthew Cox. Just going to mutter my sound on that. I'm just going to quickly see whose sound it is. I'm just going to quickly mute out and see if it's my sound.
George,
it's yours.
That's always reassuring.
That's all right. I knew it'd be you, George. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't accuse you of something with all that side of it. So yeah, goalkeepers quite set. Fullbacks, so these are under contract for next season. So Paul Osu, Nesta Guinness Walker, Daniel Shocker, and Alexander. I've just forgot his first name there, George.
Shay.
Do you know what? It's so bad when I forget their first names. That's my age. That is my age. But yeah, if you look at Paul Osu, weird this season. Like I say, it hasn't had the impact that he had obviously the previous season. Nesta Guinness Walker got quite a few games in there. A left back, I think you could argue that he's got a left back position now nailed down. Daniel Shoker, interesting, wasn't it? Played in three centre half. George played the left of the three centre halves and got quite a lot of games, 20 appearances, which I was really surprised at. But that was all under Glyn Hodges, wasn't it? Under that side, and Shane Alexander, to be fair, I think has been an excellent. And I'm in a way with Luke O'Neill going. It now gives him that opportunity to take the place his own on that. Fullback wise, George, do you think we need to bring much in?
I think we could probably do with bringing a right back in, because ideally I'd like to see Paul Osu go out on loan. Obviously going into the start of last season, he was competing with Nesta for that left back spot. Then we brought in Steve Seddon, and that obviously put Paul Osu a long way down the pecking order. And I think he stagnated a bit. He struggled. He hasn't played a huge number of games this year. Like I said, only the 10 games off the bench. The under-23s haven't been particularly active this year, what with the 13 fixture congestion. So I think for Paul Osu, going out on loan to a National League club for a year just to get him some minutes playing as left back would be hugely beneficial for him. So I do think we need another right back in. So then you've got a new right back, you've got a left back, and then you've got Shea Alexander, who can be back up on both sides, as we've seen in the latter half of this season.
Yeah, and it has been a problem, isn't it? In terms of obviously everything below the National League, postponed, suspended, curtailed. So obviously that's where we would send out quite a lot of loans. Is that, in terms of, that's been a problem around the whole sort of football league, isn't it, Gabriel?
Yeah, I think so, and certainly clubs below the National League haven't been able to continue running because they rely solely on gate receipts in order to keep running. So a really big problem there, and hopefully we'll have fans back in next season, and that's something to be really excited about.
Definitely. Sorry that I just realised that I've put the question over Gabrielle, so I do apologise. I'll change it all around. But as we were talking about Paul Osu,
I think it's better this way, actually. Yeah.
To be fair, I know we put Georgia at the bottom, to be fair, mate, so on that side of it. But quite interesting from Richard Farrell. Thanks for joining us this evening. So, hi, gents. Great win in the London Senior Cup on Saturday. But should the game have been played 10 days later, so fans could have got in? Great question. Great question. I was thinking along those lines. George, I'm guessing you might have an understanding of, was there, obviously we've got a test event which we're going to discuss in a little while, test event against the Liverpool under 23s at Plough Lane on Tuesday. In terms of, is my feeling that we probably wouldn't have got the safety certificate early enough to play it, George, or
yeah, I think that's the thing, because once we pass this sort of test event, then we are it will take a few weeks to actually get the safety certificate. And the London FA, even though they're still in the second round stage on the other side of the draw, they're still insistent they want the final played before the end of May. So I think realistically it would have been by the time we get...
By the end of May?
Yeah, they're thinking bank holiday weekend at the end of May. They're thinking they're going to have 4 games in a week for the quarterfinal, semi-final.
So we're going to win easily because we're going to be the freshest.
Yeah, but they are going to really try and condense the fixture list for that other side of the draw to get it played by the end of May. And I just think we wouldn't have had the safety certificate in time. Plus, you don't really want 2 test events that close together because you can't have time to fix anything that might not work as well as we'd like on Tuesday.
Yeah. And it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because, like, in terms of the National League, obviously that's got 2 games to play, so they're going to finish at the end of May. I suppose we don't really want our players finishing that late because, you know, they play a lot of games in that side of it, isn't it? So, but the reason I brought the London Senior Cup question in is obviously Paul Ossie played in that competition on Saturday. 2 goals by Corey Andrews, who joined us from K's. Got the goals. Didn't realise he was old. Do you know what, George? I didn't realise he was 23. No, we were talking about Anthony Hartigan beforehand. We didn't realise he was 20. I didn't realise Corey Andrews was 23, to be fair. But yeah, on that side of it. Let's go through. I'm just going to quickly go. Luke McKenzie, good evening, my friend. Good to see you joining us. You've not missed much, really, to be fair. So we're just going through the player release list, which I'm sure you know all about. That'll do for questions. So where are we next? So centre halves, where we have got quite a few, haven't we? But these are the ones that are under contract confirmed. Ben Hennigan, George, I was surprised by that. I thought he'd come in on just a end of season, but it looks like we might have had a year option potentially, George. Will Nightingale, Paul Cannon-Baye. Impressive. Do you know what I noticed actually? Goals from centre halves. So we've got 4 goals. Paul Cannon-Baye hasn't scored yet. He's probably the biggest one out of the whole lot of them. That's probably just what he's got to add to his games. But those are 3 under contract at the moment. Terrell Thomas has been offered a contract. As a time, we don't know if that has been agreed on that side of it. Gabriel, it's quite centre half wise. That's not a bad selection there, is it?
No, I mean I can remember Paul Cannon-Baye coming in. It might have been in Wally Downs' reign as manager a couple of years ago. So although he's young, he has got some grounding in this first team. He always strikes me as being a very athletic defender. I believe he's left-footed as well, so that there's a bit of balance in that sense. So probably a little bit unlucky with the form of Nightingale and Hennigan, and Mark Robinson seems to favour a back 4, if I'm not mistaken. So perhaps that's made it a bit more difficult for to get regular games.
Yeah, and you're spot on. He does prefer a 4 at the back. Oh, sorry, 4 at the back. He's 2 centre halves, obviously. That's sort of a straight back 4. And we are top heavy with centre halves, but decent centre halves as well. Daniel Shocker could play centre half, George, as well, can't he? We let Luke O'Neill go, who could play the right of the 3, wasn't it? But probably couldn't play in 2. George, you happy enough with who we've got left at the moment?
Yeah, I think if anything, you're probably looking at saying we've got too many. I mean, I know you've classed Dan Shoker as a left back on the chart, but realistically, he is a centre back, especially in a back 4. He's, he has to be one of the 2. He's not athletic enough to be able to make those sort of bombing runs we need as a fullback. So I do think, especially if we are able to re-sign Terrell, I would like to see Dan Shoker go out on loan for a year to a National League or a League 2 club, just to free up a bit of wage money. And because when you're playing a back 2, you don't need 5 centre-halves of that calibre, especially when you've got like Jack Madeline in the under-23s and Ethan Sutcliffe stepping up from the 18s.
Yeah, and that is the thing. We've got quite a few questions actually about who's next on the sort of production line. Shouldn't we call that, but you know what I mean, on that side of it. So we'll go through them a little bit. George, Bob, Walshy Walsh says, nice to meet you, George, in the shop this week. Pigs won't sign. Discuss. I always love a question when it goes, discuss. It's great, isn't it? So I might not want to on that side of it. But George, Club Shop, how's it been going, by the way?
Yeah, Club Shop's been going very, very well. We're hitting it's been very active. We're getting a lot of passing interest from the vaccination centre. As you'd expect, a lot of people taking an interest in our club, wanting to learn more about our story, wanting to learn more about our club, wanting information ahead of the season tickets and match day tickets for next year. It's going really well. I mean, obviously, we're open Tuesday morning, but we have to shut at 2 o'clock before the test event. But we're open Monday to Friday, 10 till 4 on a normal day. Some great bargains to have while we've still got some training kit and third kit left before they're sold out.
Yeah, and do you know what? The vaccination centre at the ground at Plough Lane's been great, isn't it? It's great if we can do something for the community, to be a place. Obviously, we've done with the Don's Local Action Group, which got some great press, but also the vaccination. You need to do some sort of deal, George, like, I don't know. You've got to wear short sleeves, don't you, to go into the vaccination centre to make sure you get your arm ready. I don't know. We need to try and maximise sales, George, on that. I don't know. Get some AFC Wimbledon plasters or... I don't know. I've had both jabs, to be fair, and I've been fine. So I'm guessing both of you haven't had jabs. You look way too young.
Yeah, sadly, we're quite young. So I don't want to speak for Gabriel, but I certainly haven't had mine yet.
I've not had mine, but the place I work at, you can do these sort of test type things where you've got to put this, you've got a swab, I think it is. So that's what I've done, and luckily that came out as negative. But obviously it's a serious time, and thought so everyone who has been affected. But yeah.
Do you know what's interesting? I do tend to do this, so I do apologise, Gabriel. I do tend to go on different segments, but I'm watching the Brits this week with the O2, and they had to have so many different tests, didn't they, before they went? I wouldn't do it. I don't think it'd be worth it. I don't really want something being stuck up my nose. I'll be truthful. I've had mates that have had it done, and if anything stops me going out, is I don't want to test. But the interesting thing, George, actually, just before we go on to the test event. There's no COVID test for us at all, is there?
No, there's no mandatory testing, which, at one stage it looked like the government might insist on, but thankfully they haven't, because those tests are not fun. And I think everyone at the club, we've had enough of those over the last year or so, considering the number of outbreaks at the club. Yeah. I'm quite happy that we're not having to do one of those again, and it'll only help maximise the attendance and get us as close to that 2,000 as the tickets we've sold.
Definitely. And I just want to quickly go back, actually, because I know when we're looking at right-backs, Gabriel, I know you had a right-back that might be of some interest to us if we were going to look down that route.
Yeah, there's a lad called Cornell MacDonald at Derby who's supposed to be quite high pedigree at youth level, and I think he's only played once for the Rams this season, but he's someone who might be able to give you a bit of technical quality and maybe someone you could rotate with Jay Alexander. I mean, I'd be surprised if Alexander's done well stepping up. I think it was Barnet in the National League, wasn't it? But you might need a rotation option there to make sure your squad's nice and thick enough.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly other options as well. I mean, Domenico Dehenny, I think I've probably pronounced that poorly. He's been released by Huddersfield.
Okay.
I think
everyone's been released by Huddersfield, George.
Yeah, he's a young attacking fullback. I rate him quite highly. He's one of those I think he's probably on the radar of bigger clubs than us. But if he's still available by the time we're sort of an attractive proposition for these players, he'd be a great signing. And in terms of a loan, I quite like Dujon Sterling from Chelsea. He's had 2 loan spells before. He's young. He's local. Obviously we've got Robbo, who's a very highly respected youth coach, so it does increase the likelihood of us getting a top 6 loanee. And again, I think that's they're the 2 that I would like us to see us sign.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because the loans, we know Robbo's done his presentations to clubs, and we can only assume, I reckon, they're going to be probably the London Premier League clubs in terms of his reputation. But it would be interesting. I know Atkinson got a few Chelsea loans, and Darren Moore got loads at Doncaster, and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank literally changed the whole team for Burton with that. It's interesting, actually. I was listening to Darren McAntony's podcast this week, where, again, he's hilarious. I don't know if you listened to it at all, Gabrielle, but Darren McAntony can literally do so many swear words in the first 5 minutes. Absolutely hilarious with it. But you actually said the best 3 managers of this season was Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Mark Robinson, and I forget the name of the guy at Wigan who got them.
Liam Richardson.
Yeah, and he said they were his top 3 managers of the season. But Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's done an amazing job, but also filled with loans, which is the contacts, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes a real difference if you've got people at top clubs that you can go to get in those deals that kind of improve the quality of your team. And certainly, if you've not got the budget, I mean, there's going to be a lot of big clubs in the division next season. You're looking at Sheffield Wednesday, Charlton, Portsmouth. It's going to be tough for Wimbledon, and I think I believe Mark Robinson. I'm not sure how popular I'm going to be saying this. He was a Chelsea fan initially, yes. And I think he did tours around Stamford Bridge at one point before he started working with Wimbledon. So he may have connections there, which should come in pretty handy.
Do you know what? I forgot Robbo was a Chelsea fan initially. Of course, he's a
Sorry for reminding you, Stu.
No, well, I've just realised I've just taken the mick out of Chelsea, haven't I? So let's hope he isn't watching. Because I just totally forgotten that. George, Adam Hillman, again, good evening. Huddersfield, no parachute payments. Yeah, there's going to be a number of clubs are going to be like that. Huddersfield probably going to be looking at struggling again next season. You're right, Gabriel. To be fair, I was going to put a slide on of the confirmed clubs for League One next year. But again, I was listening to I'm not going to keep plugging the Darren McAntony podcast, but again, I was listening to that, and he was like, he is so pleased he's not in League One next season, and he rolled through the clubs, and I was like, oh my days, trying to think where the points are coming from in terms of it is, when you think about the teams, George, like we're going to have some really big teams coming down to Plough Lane
and Bolton coming up as well. After that,
yeah, you're right in that terms of it's going to, George, like, I know we shouldn't look too far ahead, but it's going to be a tough season, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be, I think, probably 10 or so clubs who have played Premier League football within the last 20 years in League One next year. And that's madness to say. You've got big teams obviously coming down. Sheffield Wednesday, the headline team, in terms of how they're going to be doing that. I'd expect them to be around the top, obviously, with Darren Moore there, if he's still there next year.
Yeah.
Bolton, I think, will be in and around sort of probably mid-table. But it's going to be a tough season. And you look and you say the bottom half this year will probably be the bottom half next season. Obviously, with the League Two clubs coming up, replacing those 4 who went down. So I think, again, we're going to look League One next year, even more so than this year, will be mini leagues again, which is really frustrating to see because the top 7 and the bottom 7 before the season starts.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know what? And talk about Darren Moore, that was so good to see him on the touchline. Yeah. For the last game of the season, do you know what? He wasn't a popular defender for me because he was a no-nonsense defender, but really, really good manager, and really pleased that he's recovering. And it was great to see him on the touchline for the last game of the season. So let's go through midfielders. So I had a bit of fun with this, George, because as you do, because Andy Hartigan can play for 2 teams on this side. So defensive midfielders, Anthony Woodyard. Woodyard, captain. Alex Woodyard, 39 appearances, 1 goal. Obviously, that 1 goal was the equaliser against Oxford from memory. Is that right, George? I'm trying to think at the top of my head.
Yeah, I think so.
Had a really good season. I think Woodyard was in the top 3 of minutes played. Big player for us. Andy Hartigan, obviously on loan now at Newport County. Obviously had quite a few games before, so we remember he played those games literally when we played Barrow, and Crawley was ever present. But then went to Newport. Newport, he's starting to get a bit better now, isn't it? In terms of, did feel he went there and wasn't getting games, but he's now doing very, very well, and has the playoffs to look forward to. They play Tuesday night, George, from memory.
Yeah, I think it's Tuesday night, Newport's game. But I think, Ant, I was surprised when Glyn got rid of him in January to free up a bit of money, because I thought Anthony had been very, very good for us, especially over that period where we were playing literally 4 games within about what felt like 6 days at one stage, when we were playing Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. He was a very, very good player for us. And next year, he's going to have a key role for us under Robbo. And I wouldn't be surprised if Robbo starts to build this team around him, because we know what Anthony Hartigan can do. And I think with the right players, especially with the aggression and the physicality of Woodyard, I think we could be seeing Anthony Hartigan close to his best again come next season.
Do you mind if I just interject on
Of
here?
course.
Because I mean, I'm a massive fan of George Dobson, the lad you've got on loan from Sunderland. I remember seeing him at Walsall, and he was very good at it. And he's sort of seems like a very energetic midfielder. And I know that Anthony Hartigan, in his time with your lot, he's been seen as someone who's very technical, keeps the ball ticking over pretty nicely. Do you think, either of you, that he can do a similar job to what Dobson's been doing in terms of that work rate off the ball?
No, he's a very, very different player. You know, he's more of the type of player Pirlo was towards the end of his career.
Oh,
that player who
Pirlo,
will-
you can't compare him with that, George.
I
You
know
just
he's not
set him
going
up.
to. He's not going to appreciate that, is it? But it's that sitting in the hole between defence and midfield, controlling, dictating the tempo, trying to link all the phases together. He's that sort of player. You don't expect anything of him off the ball, really. He's just not that type of player. He does need a Woodyard or a Dobson if we can sign him again to come in and do all of that work for him.
Yeah, and I think with Artigan, I saw a lot of him in youth football, and to be fair, he could dictate the game. He bossed the under-18s. I think we found it difficult to where to actually play him, if I'm being truthful. He's probably I always like a player like Brannigan at Oxford, who can come in and link sort of defence and midfield. His passing ability is excellent. The problem we've had for Anthony Hartigan is we just haven't played a formation or a style of football that actually incorporates the qualities he has. So I think next season, I don't think Robbo would have sent him out on loan if he was in charge. Glenn obviously looked at getting him out, and probably George Dobson was the one that he sacrificed Hartigan for George Dobson, who, by the way, absolutely love. I'm trying not to say too much about him because I would love him to stay. And hopefully something can be sorted out. He was a crowd favourite, no doubt about that. Excellent player. But you know what, Anthony Hartigan, I have joked, I think he will learn a lot by being at Newport, just for the one of he won't want to stay at Newport. It's not anyone's been in Newport would know that. Just going to quickly say, Adam Hillman, yeah, you're right. I don't know, actually. Apparently Newport pitch was rubbish due to rugby. I thought they sorted it out, George.
They've invested a bit into it, but even so, there's 3 other rugby union teams that play on that pitch. There's 2 or 3 rugby union sides that play there. And I'm emphasising rugby union here. It's not rugby league, it's rugby union. Rugby union.
You knew I was coming, didn't you?
Rugby union damages the pitch, and going out playing obviously in Newport in a physical side on a dodgy pitch. That's not Anthony Hartigan's style. He was never going to thrive under those conditions. But it's great to see he's starting to find his way back into that team now, and hopefully he can have a good few games in the playoffs and get a day out at Wembley.
Yeah, that pitch has looked better though. I'm that's where I was quite. Pitch looks, well, to be fair, couldn't be much better than what it was. Let's be fair, a couple of years ago, it was absolutely atrocious, wasn't it? On that side of it, and also Richard Chin, wasn't Hartigan ill, recovering from COVID, perhaps? Yeah, he was. We had him on here just before he went over to Newport, and I think he lost about a stone of weight.
And there was nothing to him anyway.
Yeah, and he was one of our fittest players. So that could have been, it could have been that. It could have been that as well. So on there, cool. Just for those of you, we've got Michael Hampton joining us probably in about 10 minutes, talking about the academy, but he will join in with us on there. We'll get through as much as we can on here. So the next lot, which is probably the exciting bit actually, under contract, the attacking midfielders, Jack Rodoni, who next season, Jack, please get a picture taken and stop. Smile, Jack. Do you know what I mean? It's Ayub Asal and Ethan Chislett. Exciting, really, in there. George in that 10 goals from that side of it. Ethan Chislett. Gradually getting used to the levels of League One. Jack Rodoni played a lot of games this season. How old is Jack Rodoni now? 21, George?
20.
33 appearances in League One. It's some going. And of course, the Wonder Kid, no, I'm not going to call him that. Asal signed a 3-year contract here to 2024. And 861 minutes and 4 goals. Impressive on that side of it. Have you seen? Let me just quickly get a graphic out there. Gary, have you seen much of Asal at all? I see he's only played a few games.
Stu, I'm so excited about Ayub Assal. I think he's a really exciting asset for FC Wimbledon, and I think it's a real statement of the faith in Mark Robinson, the faith in the direction of the club that he signed a new 3-year deal. He looks like he's got that pace to run in behind. I think we saw that in that win at Accrington, but he's also got that bit of skill about him. And I think since there was a game at Blackpool where he came off the bench, might have been his debut, or certainly very early in his time. And he pretty much changed the game. And I think since then he just hasn't really looked back to your lot. So be excited to watch him and see how he gets on next year.
Yeah, I agree. And to be fair, I will always admit this to George, because George was George kept saying just bring him on. I think Shrewsbury was when he come on as sub and scored a scrappy equaliser, but they all count. And I was like, no, don't put him on. I'll be honest with you, I was like, you can't put a kid on. You can't put a kid on in this situation. What do I know? George was singing his praises, George, weren't you? But George, in all seriousness, I know you're going to say, did he even surpass your expectation of what he would achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be harsh for anyone to say they expected him to do this. He surpassed everyone's expectations. But, the first time I saw Roy play was in a youth game where he was playing up an age group, and he came off the bench with 15 minutes to go and scored a late equaliser and just completely changed the game then. And every time I've seen him play since then, whether it be under 16s, under 18s, 23s, or even this season, he's changed the games. His aggression, his attitude is everything you'd want for a player to, make it. We've talked earlier about Paul Osu, maybe he's stagnating a bit, but Ayub's attitude and his work rate and his determination won't let him do that. He's always going to keep striving to be the best. You listen to him, he's saying he's a future Ballon d'Or winner. Will he win that? I think that's probably a bit much for him, but I think he's ambitious, so he sees this as a big step on his journey. And the fact that he's committed to 3 more years with us just shows how much he believes in the project, how much he believes in Robbo and what we're trying to build here. But also, I think a massive, massive shout out to his family, friends, and advisors, because we've seen way too many young people waste their talent by listening to bad agents, taking bad advice, trying to take money too early, or reject a pro contract to try and get a trial somewhere else and it falling apart. Like Toyosi, who has ended up at Walton Casuals after he turned down a pro contract to trial with Chelsea. I think the people around Ayub deserve a huge amount of credit and respect, because he's not just a brilliant player, he's a brilliant person, and the people around him deserve credit for that.
Yeah, and you're spot on. And Robbo, we know, in the academy, I think if I remember the Newcastle game, we won up there, and then we tidied up the change room. We didn't, Robbo gets them he makes them men. He doesn't, not every academy player will make it, but what he will do, Robbo, if they don't make it in terms of football, they will have life skills that they can use elsewhere. And you're right, most of the players that come through from the academy are a credit to the club. But to sign a 3-year deal, I must admit, like I say, I don't think, no matter what happens this summer, I don't think we get any better news than that, if I'm being honest with you. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see a crowd with him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's, I don't know about you, Gabriel, but he's, for me already, he has become, when he's on the pitch, it's like the players want to find him, and I'm actually thinking, where is he? Give him the ball, go and do the damage. That's high praise for a person who's only had 10 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that ability to kind of just really want the ball at all times and not kind of hide away from it, I think is really important for a young player. Right? I also think you've got to credit Wimbledon with the way that you bring through young players, because you're looking at Jack Rodoni as well, who we may come on to. Paul Osso and Callum Bay, I think we've mentioned previously, that have come in previous seasons and just affected the first team straight away. So here there's a really good youth coaching system at Wimbledon, and I think that's going to be really right at the beating heart of your long-term future.
Definitely. And do you know what, Jack Rodoni is interesting, because before Assal come in, Jack Rodoni was probably going to get Young Player of the Year. Easily, walk it. And do you know what? He's had a great season. In a way, George, I'm just sort of thinking off the top of my head here, Assal may help Jack Rodoni, because it will take, when the kids come through from the academy, and Andy Hartigan had it, there's pressure on them. We always say he's one of our own, and they all do that. But there's pressure on Jack, because Jack was performing, wasn't he? Do you think in a way now, with Assal coming in and potentially we've got other kids coming through, it'll take the pressure off Rodoni a little bit?
Oh, definitely. And I mean, not just in terms of the pressure of being the homegrown sort of poster boy of the academy and of the club. I think also just from a style of play point of view, you look how much emphasis was put on Rudy in the first half of the year. So everything we were creating was having to go through Rudy.
Yeah.
And now having other Ayub, Ethan Chislett, we've offered a contract to Shayon Harrison. Having as many players with that creative spark will help Rudy because it means he can focus on doing what he does, and he's not going to have to carry the team on his shoulders every single game.
Yeah, and do you know what with Jack Rodoni, which was really surprised me? Like, obviously, Jack Rodoni had a really crazy haircut. Like, he'd done a perm, George, didn't he? Like you. And he scored 2 headers this season. Like, I didn't think Jack Rodoni would score a header. Scored a header against Ipswich, and he scored a header against Rochdale, wasn't it? He scored the first one. And great headers. But like, I thought like, a person with that hairstyle, he ain't gonna want to get a header, is he? Do you know what I mean? Like, if he was playing at Newport, trust me, he wouldn't be heading the ball because it'd be full of mud on that side of it. But yeah, I just want to say that Jack Rodoni's had a great season. Asau has sort of stolen the plaudits, but we are very lucky to have him in our team, and he's going to be a year older, a bit stronger next season on that side of it. Okay, so go.
I would like to ask George actually about like where you see Rodoni fitting in, because I've seen that at times Rodoni's played on the left, but I notice he's not someone that would say he relies on lots of pace like a sort of classic winger. He seems like a very technical player. He's got a lovely left foot, put some good deliveries in. I'm just thinking, what sort of position do you see him playing towards the right? Do you see him playing in the hole? I feel like getting the right position for him. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, he's incredibly versatile. He can play probably anywhere in midfield or even up front if you need him to. Personally, I think his position is the best sort of in the middle of an attacking midfield 3. I think that's the position that suits him best. But also on the right, we have seen him. He's won penalties this season because he can cut in from that right-hand side with his left foot. He has got a decent cross on it or a shot. So he can play there, but I think in the middle of an attacking 3 is his sort of attacking midfield 3 is his best position.
Yeah, I agree, George. Interesting question just come in from Adam Hillman. Needs to prepare for penalties and free kicks if no Pigs and no Luke O'Neill. Yeah, interesting in terms of the side of it. Yeah, with Rodoni, it's interesting, isn't it? Because where we played a 4-2-2-2. Yeah, I think Jack could play any side of that. I don't think he's not one-footed as such. But I agree with you, Gabriel. It's trying to find a position for him. But I think you can't really give him a free role as such, but he can sort of come in between those. The good thing about Jack Rodoni is he's weighing in with goals, along with Asau. So if we can take, with Pigs, we're not too sure if he's going to stay this next season, but we have goals elsewhere rather than, if we lose a 20-goal a season striker. That's not great, but we're not as vulnerable as we were on that side of it. So I just noticed, let me just quickly go through. Michael Hamilton has joined us, so he will be coming on literally I'll do a slide and then we'll do that side of it. So forward-wise, under contract for next season, Ollie Palmer and Zach Robinson, they're the forwards we've got at the moment. Obviously, contract's been offered out to Joe Pigott. George, been a very tough season for Ollie Palmer, isn't it? But finished well towards the end of it, didn't he?
He did, and I mean, as soon as there you go, I think he's a very talented player. I mean, obviously we got Corey Andrews into that mix as well, who wasn't on that slide for some reason, Stu. But I think
he's on another slide, George.
Yeah, but I mean, personally, I think Zach next year, another loan deal would be very, very good for Zach Robinson. So I think if we can, we need 2 more strikers in addition to Palmer and Corey. So if one of them's Pigs, that's brilliant. But I do think we probably need another one just to make sure we've got enough squad depth there to make sure we can rotate, because that's what hurts in the first half of the season, not being able to rotate up top.
Yeah, definitely. So let's just quickly go through the final bit. So we say thank you to the players that returned to their parent club. Sam Walker, Darnell Johnson, who unfortunately got injured on that side of it. Yaros Oksanen, George Dobson, who we were talking about. Gabriel, yeah, do you know what? Probably my favourite loanee. Absolutely superb from midfield. And I'm just hoping that no one saw how good he was in terms of that, and nobody approaches him. And of course, Ryan Longman, who weighed in with 8 goals, some really important goals as well, who goes back to Brighton and Hove Albion. George, we sort of said earlier, haven't we? Do you know what I mean? The loans will be key next season. We've got some high quality loans in this season, George. So you know, if Robbo has done his presentation to other clubs, we don't know who they are. We're in good company with what we had this season.
Yeah, and I mean, I think obviously, Ryan Longman started the season well. He sort of struggled a bit towards the end. I'm not sure if the shape sort of helped him a huge amount. Obviously, George Dobson has to be, the best loan signing we've had this year. Darnell was a little bit unlucky with injuries. Sam Walker, let's move on. But I mean, obviously, in the first half of the season, we had Truman and Steve Seddon, and they were both did well. So I think we got the loanies did okay this year, but next year they're going to be key, especially to make sure we have depth in key positions.
Yeah, definitely. And before we get on and join Mark Hampton on here, out of contract, offered new deals. So we know that Terrell Thomas has been offered a new deal, and we know Joe Pigott has offered a new deal. Gabriel, Joe Pigott, he's topped. If you looked at the key stats, played the most minutes, got the most assists, got the most goals. He's going to be a sought after player, isn't he? Do you think he will, in terms of, do you think a championship club will come in for him? Or do you think maybe he may stay with Wimbledon?
If I'm being truthful, I'm not convinced that Joe Pigott will stay, because I do think that he may get more financially lucrative offers. And although, as much as as fans, we have allegiances to one club, and there's that emotional connection. I'm not saying players don't have that, and I'm sure Joe Pigott's really grateful to FC Wimbledon in terms of a lot of played in his development. Footballers have short careers; they've only have one careers, and I think they do have to sometimes take the opportunities that come their way. So I imagine that he'll either be going to the Championship or to one of the big League One clubs we've mentioned earlier, because he's I mean, just as much as if Pigott hadn't been doing well for Wimbledon, you'd want to be moving him on at this stage. So it worked both ways. But listen, Pigott's been a great reference point, and he's certainly been in fantastic goal scoring. Yeah, so all credit to him for that, and for Wimbledon, I think it probably will be a case of finding a replacement.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking from the outside in, I wouldn't disagree with that. But head and the heart, I'm hoping we've done enough just to show with Robbo what Robbo's doing, and definitely, obviously, the players that are coming through, which the academy and Michael heavily involved in. So, final slide on here. Players under contract. David Fisher was at Hampton, I think, dual registration. I think we've offered him a deal to come back in. But Jack Curry. I hear a lot of good. George and Michael, you're the ones on the U side of it. George, do you want to go through the players in terms of on that list?
Yeah, well, I mean, David Fisher has been offered one. I don't think he's signed it yet, but I'd be very surprised if he doesn't come back in. He's had he was doing quite well at Hampton and Richmond on a sort of different contract style earlier this season, before their season was cut short. Jack Madeline, I rate very highly. He played a couple of years ago, made his first team debut away to Burton. Centre-back, can also play holding midfield, which is where I think he'll probably eventually end up. Very technically gifted. Jack Curry, quite raw, but has a lot of potential on the left side, has a decent long throw. Elliot Bolton, everyone knows his story about him being a fan, very technically gifted, probably another one that needs a loan spell this year. And Hussein Belair is a player I'm very, very excited about. Attacking right back, very sort of edge of your seat attacking fullback, which is what I think we all like to see. Very much one for the future, and again, one I think we'll probably see going out on loan at some point this season.
Yeah, and to be fair with Hussein, I've heard a lot of good things from people that have watched. I haven't been able to watch the youth games as much as I used to, but I've heard a lot of good things about him on that side of it. So, Michael, thank you very much for joining us live from your car.
Guys, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for joining us. So, you joined us at a good time, actually. Obviously, a few of those players that you would obviously have seen at the academy level. How exciting has it been to see those players coming through? And obviously, you've worked with Robbo, you know Robbo well. There's obviously that progression now coming into the first team.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to you guys speak about it. You guys make it sound really simple.
Of course it is.
We we've got some real talented boys coming through. Some that you've mentioned. You've got Jack Curry, who's a very athletic left back who probably doesn't understand and appreciate how good he can be. You've got Jack Medlin, who can play multiple positions, like George said. George is obviously doing his homework. Archie Proctor, I'm not sure if you mentioned Archie Proctor. Left-sided centre-back, good leader, very committed to his development, and injured at the moment, unfortunately, but he's a real exciting prospect. Hussein, as George said, an attack-minded fullback who, with his energy, with his commitment and aggression, will get the fans on the edge of their seat. Zach Robinson, which you know a little bit more about, and Dav Fisher, and it's David. I know it's spelled David, but it's David.
Is it
Dav
really?
Fisher.
Okay.
So it's got a little twang to it, but no, he's a very talented young man, and with a good loan, with good development, I think in the next 12 to 18 months he could be really exciting. So all of them are exciting in their own little way, and I'm sure, Robbo done a statement this week talking about the pathway for the boys, and how we've changed our model a little bit to try and give those guys a little bit more time to develop and a little bit time to mature and gain experience. And that's what it's for. They're talented boys. We are committed to providing them with an environment which will help maximise their potential, but at the same time, there's two sides to it, and the boys are also accountable for how they develop and how they use the opportunity, because it is just an opportunity. But there's no doubt every boy that you mentioned there, plus a few more coming up, they all deserve it.
Superb. Yeah, George has been doing his own work. To be fair, George. This is where I get most of my information from, is George, in terms of the players coming through on that side of it. Gabrielle, thank you very... My cat is just going to annoy me. Live TV, eh? Gabrielle, thank you very much for joining us. It's really, really insightful from that point of view. Any more games for you this season in terms of the playoffs? Are you going to be able to get along 20?
I'll be following the games, but probably not at the ground. But looking forward to getting lots of games that season, Stu. And thanks for having me. It's been great to chat. Yeah,
it's been really good. And like I say, hopefully we can meet down at Plough Lane when fans are allowed to go back in on that side of it. So thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate you. And like I say, on the Twitter, we'll promote all the stuff obviously you're doing and stuff like that. It's been great having you.
Okay.
Take care. Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. So in terms of the pathway now, with obviously Jack Rodoni and Abasal, Michael, how has that gone down in the academy? Surely for yourself, that creates that even bigger buzz to show that not everyone can go and have the impact that Asal has had, but it definitely shows there's that pathway down, isn't it?
Definitely. One thing that we from the academy side have had a gripe, and I must stress it's not an AFC Wimbledon thing. I think it's an industry problem. You've got academies who do so much good work developing players. Some have been in the building from they were like 8, 9 years old. They get to 16, 17, 18, and they don't give the time and the last bit. They're not giving the time to see their potential come to fruition. So seeing the boys go through and make an impact, I can honestly say it's not that much of a surprise to us. We know we've got some talented boys. Of course, until they experience first team football, you're never too sure how they're going to take to it. But at the same time, it's so important we don't rush them and we're patient with them. You saw Jamie Vardy yesterday, and his story is quite unique, but his story is one which, is echoed around the academy system, because, at 16, 17, 18, he gets told by Sheffield Wednesday he's not good enough. 10, 11 years later, he's one of the best strikers in the world. And there's so many stories like that. And what hopefully we're moving towards now is, like we said, just being a little bit more patient with the boys, being a bit more proactive with the loans program and making sure, they go and get the experience of men's football and they understand what it's like to play for 3 points at the weekend. But at the same time, getting the in-house development with us. And just giving them the extra little bit of time that their talent requires.
Brilliant. And in terms of Robbo, obviously, we mentioned in the article where Asal's obviously signed his 3-year deal, that we're going to change the way we offer the contract. So we were offering, I believe, a year plus a year option, and it's now changed to 2 years and a year option. Is that massive for you? Because a year in a kid's development is massive, isn't it? 12 months. Is that something that you're really pleased at? Does that really then help to make sure? Because if you look at players like Will Nightingale and players like Will had injuries and stuff like that, so his development was stopped a little bit. Is that really now going to help yourself and the academy now?
100%. It's quite. It's very. You often sit there with young players and you say, we really believe in you, and we believe you're the future. However, here's a 1 year commitment from us. So much can happen in 12, 24 months, and especially when you're under pressure of, your first season is in senior football. Plus, you don't even know if you're going to season after that. You're hoping you don't get injured. You're hoping your form's good. You have 1 or 2 bad games, and all of a sudden, psychologically it starts playing with you because you feel you've not got a chance for next season. And so much goes on, and so much can go wrong. We're massive advocates in the academy of failure propels learning, and mistakes is all part of development. And what the 2 years gives us is just that. Just a bit more time to work with the players. From their side, they see that it's a massive commitment from the club. The year option is a year option, and the boys know they're fully accountable for their own development, and they have to maximise the opportunity. But you will not find another League One club, a Category 3 academy, who have a model like ours. Financially, it's a big commitment. It's a big commitment in terms of resources and time, so it's a longer term view. So the boys, myself and Rob Tuvey, we pulled the boys the other day and said, look, you don't owe us nothing, you owe it to yourselves. But you have to be accountable. So it's a two-way agreement, I must stress that. But it's positive because, now boys see that their development's going to be supported accordingly. They all need different things. Some might need a loan, some might just need a bit more in-house development physically, as an example, and it just gives us the time to really start layering their developing, giving them what they want, so that we get a better return as an academy and as a club on our investments.
Definitely. And obviously with Robbo coming in, obviously we know his history in the academy. Obviously went into loans manager, coach at the first team level. What's it like now in terms, because it feels like Robbo has done so much in such a short period. In terms of mindset, just values, in terms of, he said to us the other day, what's your why? Which is a great thing. I use it now. I'm a manager in a company, and I keep saying, why'd you come into work? I use it. It's just such a great way of looking at, that sort of side of it. But what's the link? Has the link changed at all now between yourself, Rob Tuvey, Robbo? Is it? Because I'm assuming you guys have always been sort of close in terms of that. But what's the link now in terms of? Is it a bit stronger now, getting those players into like training and stuff like that?
I don't mean it's disrespectfully to anyone, but it's the best it's ever been. Robert, like you said, you've only seen the tip of his thoughts and his plans, and trust me, the more things settle and things start happening, you'll see more. But Robbo's been pivotal to this academy's progression. We wouldn't be what we are if it wasn't for him. We spent many endless nights just talking, thrashing out development. So what he's done and said and the impact he's had, I can honestly say it's a surprise to no one in the building. So I'm just getting a bit of sound. Yeah, so it's not a surprise to anyone in the building. And, if you look in the Premiership at the moment, you've got, the top 4 clubs. Brendan Rodgers yesterday, everyone's celebrating his success and his, the FA Cup final. But it's not a surprise that he is the way he is. He brings together environments to play the way they play, and he's got an.
I think we might just have lost Michael. Sure, he may come back in. We'll give Michael a chance to come back in. I think he might have lost his connection, George.
Yeah. I mean, while we're filling time and speaking about the academy, I think it's worth pointing out Jebison has scored what looks like so far it's the only goal for Sheffield United this evening. And he's a player who's 17 years old. He played against us last year in the FA Youth Cup. He played very well that night, got a brace against us, and was the reason we lost that night. He's the only reason we lost to a Premier League academy. He's come in, he's been linked with Dortmund and all of that lot in the papers today. And he's gone on to score tonight. And I think it just goes to show how important that pathway is from youth to first team, because you get some players like him or like Ayub or Anthony Hartigan or Rudy, who can break in at 17, 18 or 19. But other players, they need a bit more time. And that's what this 2+1 option gives us for these young players, because you've got some players who can break through at 19. Others are going to be 22, 23 before they're ready. We've seen that with Nick Zanev. He only joined us when he was 18. But it gives us an opportunity. He wasn't ready for 3, 4, 5 years. Elliot Bolton, another one, probably going to need another few years. He's not going to be ready till he's 22, 23 probably for League One football. And this just means we've got an opportunity to make sure we maximise their development and just make sure we're certain on if we give them every opportunity to be good enough to make sure that if they are good enough, they will make it with us. Because we've had players in the past, and I know I go on about it nearly every show, and Robbo mentions it every time he's on. But Asazi, who's now at Sheffield Wednesday, he's a player who we let go because the manager at the time didn't want to give him enough time. And I think now this new lengthy contract with Robbo, it reduces the chance of anyone else slipping through our net, which is only going to benefit us in the long term.
Yeah, and you know what? We spoke about him at Sheffield Wednesday before, and it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think Michael might be joining us. He's just he's with us back now. So let me just bring him back in. Let me just technology, George. Technology. Get him back in now. Yeah, Michael's back in now. I think he's just sorting his camera out. There we go. Just to say, Amber Leaf has just said the future looks bright. It does actually, doesn't it? You know, there's nothing better than having the academy players come through there and stuff like that. Michael's going to be here for a little bit longer. So if you've got any questions for him or any questions on the academy, please feel free to send them away. Michael, I think we've got you back now. Let me just hear the sound. Can't hear you, Michael. Not too sure. We'll let him. Kindly joined us from his car, which is great on a Sunday evening. Can't hear you at the moment, Michael, but we'll let him do that. And bring him back in once we can hear him. It's interesting, George, isn't it? Because I can see why we potentially let him go to... we didn't let him go, we released him, didn't we? I sort of understand it, and the reason I understand it is because the job is, you're judged... I think, if you think about it in terms of the lifespan of a manager, is no more than like 12, 18 months, if that. So you are judged, and you haven't got a chance sometimes to bring your academy through. That's why it's quite interesting now, because we've changed our tact, and you have to give people time, don't you? That's the thing, isn't it?
And you do, and I think that's something that obviously Robbo, in his time with the 18s and with the year or so he's had at the 23s, he's had that frustration of seeing players who we know were good enough to break into our first team, like we've mentioned, Asazi, not being given that time and not being given that first team opportunity. And I think Robbo's really keen to make sure he doesn't make that mistake and make sure that any player who we know is good enough is given an opportunity to impress in the first team, sort of in our first team, before we end up risk losing them.
I think we've got Michael back now. I think I can see the sound coming through. You can hear us okay?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I hear you loud and clear.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, good. I'm
Superb. Back. No problem. Thank you for that. I was just saying, in terms of the commitment that the academy are giving is interesting. We were saying obviously Asazi was let go. Maybe under this 2+1, we might have kept on. Obviously, no one will never know that. But I was saying in terms of managers nowadays, the shelf life for a manager is so short, isn't it? Which I've always sort of understood why sometimes people don't look to the future. But as a club, if we're going to have such a good academy that we have, surely, Michael, now this 2+1 contract means now that, well, Robbo one needs security, doesn't he? In terms of there's no point going with this model, and then if we do have a bad patch of going, it's not working. It's obviously for the long haul, Michael. can hear you, but not. I think what we'll do is we'll let. I think it's better to let Michael go now. I think obviously I don't know, George, if you want to quickly message Michael and just say that we're getting back, and what we'll do, we'll invite him back on next week or when he's available. When he's obviously, we asked him at late notice, so he's kindly joined us from his car in that sort of side of it. So just sorry, so there's quite a lot of questions coming in. So I wanted to chat. There were some questions that weren't on with the academy. I have to laugh. Sorry, Bob Walshy Walsh was a Gaza type genius. I won't put that word. Ever get through an academy nowadays? I suppose if you're good enough, you always will. I don't know whether. Can you imagine Gaza in our academy, George?
Yeah, I think you look at it, and I think I'm not sure someone like Gaza would make it through any academy in England anymore. I think the levels of fitness and the level of commitment. I mean, even right down to like under nines, they have sports scientists now. So I don't think Gaza would have even made it to under nines level in England, a professional club, let alone under 18s or first team. So I just think that he's the last of that generation of getting through before sports scientists started having their way and making sure that everyone was able to have set fitness levels, which means we are probably losing talent. But on the bright side, it means everyone's fit enough to, make an impact and being better all-round players. But the honest answer is I don't think we'll ever see a player, the fat genius ever again in English football.
No. Let's go through some of the questions. So I know Jamie Score has been asking this quite a bit. So I sort of, obviously we're doing the academy side of it. But Shane Harrison has been offered a new deal, or what is his situation? So he come on a short term, George, didn't he? Come on a short term. He's been offered a contract, we believe, or in discussions.
Yeah. He's been offered he joined us on a 6-month contract, joining us from Holland. He looked very, very good for 6 minutes before he got injured. But he's got a bit of potential, and we've offered him a contract. Hopefully he'll sign it, because he looks like a very, very talented player. Because he's at good depth. He's versatile. He can play anywhere in that attacking midfield, 3 or up front if needed. So he's a good option to have. Hopefully he decides he fancies another year of trying to stay and showing he can play for us for more than 6 minutes.
Definitely. And Leighton Womble, very much the similar lines. Shane Harrison really thought we had him on a free transfer. Rather than the seed, but obviously you explained on the 6 information on that. George, obviously I don't know if you want to let Michael know we'll sort of let him come in next week if he's okay. I think obviously he's struggling with his connection. If you want to let him know on that, George, on that side of it. What other questions have we got? Let's have a look. So quite a few coming through. I think we answered that one. So we got Adam Hillman. I think Ben Mason, Jack Madeline, and Jack Curry long throws would be good additions for the squad. We're sort of saying loans would be. The thing is, we need to. Next season is going to be interesting, isn't it? Because you think like National League and that are going to probably. I don't know what the money's going to do in terms of filtering down there. You could find that some decent clubs at national level, George, are wanting players. And we're in a great position to do that.
I think we will. I mean, I think Jack Madeline, I think it's a tough decision because he is closer. He is probably the closest out of all of those under 23 players to being ready for the first team. So it'll be a tough decision, but I do think he probably needs a loan. Jack Curry, I think you're probably looking at National South, probably just because it'd be his first proper loan spell. Maybe 6 months there, and then if he does well, ending the season at a National League Premier. Ben Mason's got another year in the under 18s, so I think Ben Mason will have another year of under 18s football before we look at loaning him out at the end of next season.
Superb. Okay, so Shane would obviously Michael Hamilton on that side of it. Really interesting in terms of the academy. You can definitely sense, can't you, a feel-good factor. Obviously, Rod Turvey being involved, Michael Hamilton probably getting a bit more of a hands-on approach and stuff like that. I suppose before we move on to the test event, because I'm conscious of time, the only thing we have to be very careful about, George, in my opinion, is not expecting every academy product to be the standard of Jack Rodoni and Asal. That's because that sometimes you know what we're like, there's another one coming through the academy, another one. We know, do you know what I mean? It's such a tough journey for them, and not everyone is. Look, I think we've got a special one in Asal, I really do, but we have to be careful of that, George, don't we?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's it's important to bear in mind. If you look, obviously, Rudy, Coxey, they're probably three of the top young prospects in England, let alone League One right now. So the fact that they're able to, we've brought them through is a huge testament to us. But we must be realistic. We shouldn't put that level of expectations on the next one to break through, whether that's Jack Madlin, whether that's Dylan Ajay-Hersey, whether it's David Fisher, whoever it's going to be, that they need to have time, because realistically it's going to be a similar development path, more similar to Paul Kalambayi, where it's a gradual exposure over 2 or 3 years into the first team, then a squad player, and then a regular. It's not every player is going to do a Rudy or an Ayu where they make their debut and then they're an ever-present pretty much from debut onwards. Most players are not going to have that sort of development pathway.
No, unheard of, isn't it? Unheard of.
Yeah.
And the thing is also, you and I, we've both said about Matthew Cox in terms of goalkeepers. We potentially have one of the best goalkeepers we produced for the academy. We have produced some good goalkeepers in that side of it. And he was the one that we sort of expected to potentially be our next. We should never put pressure on there, but a big transfer fee and stuff and play for us. But Asal's come in. Excited about Matthew Cox, obviously a goal-scoring goalkeeper, as I like to say.
And a penalty specialist, as he showed to the world on Saturday afternoon.
Great shout, yeah. Do you know what? I know it was Cray Valley Paper Mills. Have I
Correct.
got two? Yeah. I know it was them, and I know the level they're playing at. But he just looks so comfortable, George. And not even, the penalty saves is, that's what he does. But he just looks so comfortable with his feet, with his crossing. Yeah. A lone move for him, and it'd be great to see what he comes back in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it is playing against Cray Valley, who were, let's not forget, we're having a senior forward with close to 500 Football League appearances under his belt, playing up front for him. Obviously, but it's Coxey. Whenever you see him play, whoever it's against, whether it's against an under-18s team, whether it's against Cray Valley Paper Mills, whether it's a Premier League academy, or if he's playing for England under-19s, he's always that calm, composed player. He likes the ball at his feet. He never looks like he's going to concede possession, which as a goalkeeper is unheard of. To have his possession sort of retaining his pass success rates, they're very, very good, both with kicking and with throwing. And as we've seen, his shot stopping's improving every game he plays. He's a very, very talented player. Again, I'm sounding like a broken record, but a loan out to a National League side next year. And then 2022 season, hopefully, in a year's time, he'll be ready to compete with Tans for the number 1 shirt.
And do you know what's really interesting as well? I was thinking about this this morning, is that I wonder now if we go and of course we can speak to him, but I wonder if we have discussions with Matthew Cox now about potentially putting on a similar deal to Asal. Obviously not salary-wise, but, are we possibly thinking now, potentially offering him a 2+1?
I think with Coxey, if we're able to open negotiations, I don't think it'd be a 2+1. I think, again, it'd be the same as Ayub in the sense that he's got that much potential of you don't even leave a risk in there. You just offer him a flat sort of 3-year, and hopefully you can get something out of that, because he's a very, very talented player. And if we can get 3 years on top of what he's got left on his current contract, that puts us in a very good position either to have our number 1 spot sorted for a long time into the future, or if nothing else, it means we're in a good negotiating position if and when Premier League clubs do come in and start offering silly money for him.
Yeah, and that's probably me being. It's interesting what you say there, because I wasn't too sure whether the Asal deal was a 2+1 or whether it's a straight 3-year deal. Obviously, we don't sort of say the ins and outs of the contract, do we? But yeah, no, I get that. You definitely want to tie him up on that side of it. Okay, so let's quickly go through. So we're probably about another 10 minutes, and then we'll drop out. Still got quite a healthy viewing base at the moment. Gary Fletcher, good evening, my friend. Can't wait to walk down Plough. I only said the Hayden's Road then. Walk down Plough Lane with my 2 boys on Tuesday night. Yeah, do you know what? It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I won't lie. I'm a bit anxious because, of course, go and see 2,000 people. Well, not going to meet them all in one go, but you know what I mean. So we thought we'd go through the test event. It's really important that we know what obviously is going on. So I will probably put these slides up. But so Plough Lane test event Tuesday, 18th of May, kick-off 7 p.m. So obviously within there, it's really important. Only print at home, and tickets can be. George, can you read that through? It's a bit blurry for me at the moment.
So, what bit are you saying? What bit can't you read?
From the top bit, I think I've just got them on a small screen. I think you're on a big
Okay,
screen.
so obviously it's a test event this Tuesday, 7 p.m. kickoff. Only print at home and mobile tickets. So that means everyone will be able to download their ticket from their ticketing portal on the club website. You can either download that to your phone, or you can print it off at home and bring an A4 piece of paper with your ticket on to the fixture on Tuesday night. This will be the only way of getting in. There won't be paper tickets sort of from a box office. There will be no box office, obviously, on the day doing reprints, so it's really important you have it, all your information, all your tickets printed off or downloaded before you arrive at the stadium on Tuesday. If you're unable to download your tickets or you're unable to print them out, email tickets@afcwimbledon.ltd.uk, and the club will be able to print these tickets, and you'll be able to collect them on Monday. There will be no collection on the day of the event.
Super, thanks. It's actually very small on my bit, but I've just got the YouTube link as well, George. Thanks for that. So really important. You'll not be able to collect the tickets on the day of the event. So please don't leave it to the last minute. Get everything. It's really, really important. Obviously, that we get this right on that sort of side of it. Any questions, by the way? I've seen Gary Fletcher saying can't wait. Any questions whatsoever? Please chuck them through. If we don't know the answer, we will go and find the answer. I'm not too sure if Luke McKenzie is still with us at the moment. Not that he will know everything, but he normally does on that side of it. So, if you've got any questions or any queries, please chuck them through now, and we can do our best to answer them. So, in terms of so isn't that nice to see a map out ground of Plough Lane? That's great. On that side of it. So please refer to your email you've been sent, also on the article on online in terms of what times, it will say on your ticket what time you will be going in. I'm not too sure. I've not got a ticket myself. My father-in-law's got ours, but it should say what gate etc. you're going into. There are 3 20-minute slots. So 6 p.m, 6:20, and 6:40. Really important that you arrive before that time to be in. So really important. If you've got a 6 o'clock, you're there. If you've got a 6:40, please be there. Just bear in mind, Plough Lane is busy at the best of time. It's busy just going into Aldi. Do you know what I mean? There's like people queuing up. So rush hour. I know rush hour isn't as busy as it used to be, obviously before COVID. But please give yourself enough time on there. George, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd just say, obviously, there'll be no parking available on site or in the local facility on the night, so please bear that in mind. You're going to have, if you are going to park, it will be street parking a fair distance away, so factor that into your journey times. Public transport are running as normal in both to Earlsfield, to Hayden's Road, and obviously on the Northern Line and into Wimbledon. So they're your reasonable transport options. There's a good bus service as well. I would say, anyone who's having to enter through the north end of the stadium, you will need to go down. I think it's either Cobham and Mill Lane or Riverside Road. I can't remember the name of it.
Riverside,
basically, it's the little tiny road by the Corner Pin pub.
Yeah.
So just follow that down, and if you're going into the south end, you can't miss your entrance from Plough Lane.
Yeah, and like I say, it's a lot better. I understand George a lot better now, but I know that there was quite the roads, the pavements are quite squeezed, weren't they? With
and they still, they still are. So obviously after the game, there is going to be a controlled leaving, so you will be asked to leave row by row, block by block. So do allow time for that particular thing, because it could take a while to get out of the stadium at the end of the fixture. But like I said, getting into the ground, do allow good time to arrive, and make sure you're there at your allocated arrival time, because otherwise it just makes everything a tad more complicated.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's a test event, but it's also the first game at Plough Lane. And for any of you that are not familiar with Plough Lane, It is busy down there. I was fortunate enough to go to games early this season, and even with no fans there, Plough Lane was at a chock-a-block. So just make sure you give yourself extra time. The club are advising it a bit good. Jamie Scorer, let me just quickly do this. Jamie Scorer, is there a stream for the game for those who can't get down? So game, I understand, is not going to be a stream, George, I'm hearing.
I think everything for that should be directed to Charlie Talbot. You can access him on all good social media websites, and the bad ones probably. But it's just all questions for live streams. He's the one who's been organising it for the youth games and the senior cup games. So he's probably the best place to answer that one.
Yeah, I think I have seen a question go to Charlie, so don't quote me, but I believe we're not going to be the stream. I think because the fact is this is a test event, and it's so important that this goes. This is basically us getting our safe certificate. So it's really important. So my understanding is there isn't, but I will try and get that clarified, and then I will get that out on our Twitter. So just a few bits here. Food and drink. No food and drink is available in the stadium, although feel free to bring your own bottle of water. No glass containers, cans or thermos flasks will be allowed. So yeah, please just try and come as light as you can. There are loads and loads of places around Plough Lane to get food, etc., drink. I was just going to say, in terms of, for those of you coming in by train, I've found when I've gone, Earlsfield is really, really close. A straight walk down there. You can go obviously into Wimbledon. 493, just go there, or you can walk. But the 493 is busy normally. And there's one other station, George. I'm trying to think, what's the other station?
Well, there's Hayden's Road and Tooting Broadway.
Of course, how did I forget Hayden's Road? Tooting Broadway's
Not
a
like
bit of
we've
a
got a
walk,
song
isn't
over
it?
it.
Yeah, Tooting
Yeah.
Broadway's a bit of a walk.
Yeah, so you got Earlsfield's about a 15-minute walk. Tooting Broadway's probably about a 20-minute walk. So, they're not horrific walks, but there are buses that go from the ground to both of those stations if you need them. Public transport's really good. They never had a problem when I've been going there, obviously, for the shop. They're all good things. Also, I would say there is a petrol station directly across the road from the ground. So if you get to the ground and you have forgotten your sandwiches or your drink or a bar of chocolate, you can just run in there if you need to.
Yeah, good shout. Like I say, if you're going through from Earlsfield, there's loads of places. Obviously, I understand that the pubs around the corner, Corner Pin, and I've forgotten the other one named George.
By the Horns.
By the Horns. I knew it was something. I think they are open, but I think they are bookings for tables, I believe, on that side of it. So obviously, I'm not encouraging anyone to go and get pissed, but obviously that sort of side of it. So parking, as we just said, in terms of traffic, no parking on site. Accessibility spectators will be contacted separately. Actually, no, I've just, do you know what, George? I've realised I've put parking, and I've actually put it. You didn't check it well enough for me, George. Basically, there's no parking on site. There's no parking on site, and also the club have also asked about, in terms of, there's another location that they've asked not to go into. I want to just quickly move through these bags. Quite important with to help with queues. Please do not bring bags if possible. If essential, only bring one A5 bag.
Yeah, A5 bag is about 21 centimetres. In
Which is
terms of, I
nothing,
think
is
it's
it?
21 by 10.
Just get your phone
Or a
with it.
clear bag.
Or a clear bag. So unless it's essential, please don't bring bags. But appreciate, obviously, there may be people that need to bring certain things for the health, etc. But where possible, not on there. That's about it. I just want to quickly go to seats. So let's go through here. So if important fans do stick in their in our case, seats, in terms of the bubble side of it. Basically, George, just the basics, really, isn't it? Keeping your bubbles, adhere to social distancing. Yes, masks do need to be. Saying a mask, what's the actual word they use for now? Face coverings.
Face coverings, yeah.
Yeah, so they have got to be used in terms of in the stadium. So whilst you're in the seat, going to the toilet, or anything like that. The only exceptions are if you have food or drink that you can, and of course, if you are, in terms of if you're exempt from that, but you will need to provide evidence for that, or bring one of the chains now, isn't it? That the green one, the green and yellow neck thing that they have on there.
Lanyard.
That's the word. But like I say, it will be tempting to move close to your friends and stuff like that. I'm not a killjoy, but let's remember this is my cat has just literally gone across me. Sorry. Just remember this is a test event. It's really, really important that we stick to as much of the guidelines as possible on there. And finally, I suppose this goes without saying, but just to remind if you are displaying any COVID-19 symptoms 10 days before the event, so if you are suffering from them now, please do not travel to the stadium. It's really important. That's basics on that side of it, but we do know obviously this is people can't wait to go to Plough Lane, but if you are suffering from symptoms, please do not travel. And I was just saying, George, would they need to contact the club in terms of if they weren't attending on that side of it, because obviously their seat will have their name on, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to contact the club. If you're not able to attend, please do inform the club. There are, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe there is an opportunity to have the ticket transferred to someone of the same household as you, but otherwise there will be no transfer of tickets. But again, you have to contact the club to ask if any of that is possible, because it is very short notice now. So if you're unable to attend for any reason or want any information about if you can transfer your seat or not, please contact the club, because this is something we cannot get wrong. Because if we get this wrong, then there's a chance we're not allowed to have COVID capacities next season, which obviously delays fans coming back even longer than we need to.
Yeah, and obviously, if you are, if you're not able to go for any reason, if you are unfortunately having COVID symptoms, please do that tomorrow. I imagine the club are going to be super busy on the day of this test event, so please, contact them tomorrow as early as possible. Adam Hillman presumes the loos are open. No, I heard they're shut, George. I know you just got to cross your legs.
Now, I'm pleased to say that despite Stu's nonsense, as normal, the loos are open if needed. But they'll be the only facility in the ground that are open, like we said. There'll be no food and no drink available inside. You won't be able to go to the concourses except when you're arriving or leaving, and go into the loo if you need to. You won't be allowed to explore the stadium or anything. It's very much go in, get your seat, stay in your seat until you're asked to leave the ground at the end of the fixture. So you won't be, please no one exploit that. If you need to go to the loo, obviously you can. But movement inside the ground has to be kept to a minimum.
Yeah. And you know what? They're actually quite nice loos, George. Yeah, I was fortunate. I've been to Plough Lane a few times, but the last time I went there with my son, as we all know now, let me just please apologise in advance that if you go via the club shop into the ground, you will see my ugly mug on a picture with my son.
I would say, thankfully, no one will be seeing that on Tuesday unless you come to the club shop in the morning, just because we don't want to have anyone endure that, because we want people to come back to us. So we're minimising the number of people who have to see that.
I do apologise. It's a very clear picture of me, and it's a very big picture of me. I was very thankful for the club for inviting me on there. But the good news is that I do believe they're going to be not rotated round, but they're going to be moved around. I know, George, I've sort of rotated. It's not really upside down, but they are going to be moved around and changed around. So I won't be at the club shop all the time. But yeah, when you do start going games, I do apologise. You will see my ugly mug on there. The loos are great though, George, to be fair. I went to the, my story was, I went to the loo. They're not, George, you wouldn't understand this, but the old Plough Lane toilets, wow. How
Stu,
anyone...
you do realise I have been to York City away.
No, trust me,
in terms
George.
of levels.
Trust me, George, that's like pristine compared to like... I don't really know how... I reckon anyone who went in there must have caught something. Like, if there was any excuse to wear masks back then, it was that, to go into the toilets at Plough Lane. Do you know what I mean? Like, but the toilets are great at Plough Lane, the new Plough... I can't quit the new Plough Lane. Forfeit for me, I think. So
it's true. It's current Plough Lane, according to a board member. So if you're ever at risk of being caught out, current Plough Lane.
I know. Can't believe I just said that. It's not. It's Plough Lane. It's just the updated Plough Lane. That's better.
Yeah.
That's better. Adam Hillman, names aren't on the loos yet, though. No, not yet. Obviously, still loads of stuff going in with that.
That is all being run by a volunteer. If you need more information on if you think you haven't been contacted or you're worried about it, I believe the email address is rewards@afcwimbledon.ltd.uk. And the guy doing that is a good volunteer, so contact him if you're worried that you've been missed out off the Cedars reward scheme.
Yeah. Right, I think that's about it, George. We've run over. I do apologise. We've gone up to about an hour and a half, but we had loads to discuss. But I've kept an eye on the viewing figures have been healthy the whole way through. Really appreciate. I hope you've enjoyed the new sort of format, etc. We've got. We would invite Margaret Hamilton back if he's free next week, but we're going to be running through the summer. We probably should be every week. If we're not going to be for 1 week, we will. We'll let you know when in advance. But obviously, Euros coming up. I think we're going to do some fun and games for the Euros. I'm not told George yet, but I think we're going to do some little predictions and stuff like that. Let's have a bit of joy for the Euro Championships 2020. Just a bit late, isn't it? A year late on that side.
Right.
But George, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And yeah, can't wait to see people on Tuesday. Just remember, like I say, in all seriousness, test event. Let's be safe, and let's hope we get a safe certificate, and we're on the road to more people at Plough Lane. Cool. We will see you soon.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, it looks like it might actually be working.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 9 Years podcast.
Oh, well, no, don't joke with me that we're live. Oh, wow. I'm very sorry, everybody. We were miles away. We were pondering this defeat. I can't talk today. People are just rubbishing it because it's never going to happen. And I'll bet my mortgage, my life, everything I have that Neil Ardley will not go to Notts County.
Interesting.
Apparently, they've had 18 stays